Yes, guys, welcome to ALeague Australian football news. Not done one of these videos since the summer transfer window. There's been some major news come out about the Australian Cup for 2026 as they look to make wholesale changes. The first story we are going to mention is quite a significant one. I'm from in this 30 minutes after the news broke that the Australian Cup is set for major changes, with Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix to be excluded from this year. New Zealand teams axed from Australia Cup as of 2026, with competition set for big changes. And I will be reading out some of the article because it's quite important to know context to this. I get it, and I also find it a bit stupid. So, and I'll tell you why I find it a bit stupid. If it would actually let me read the article, for fuck's sake. Alright, we're good. Go on there again. But yeah, the reason why they basically axed Australian teams, can't actually read the article if it doesn't let me consent. But, we don't need the article. Basically, it's because the New Zealand teams already have a few ways of getting into the Asian Champions League. For example, the ALeague, and with the Australian Cup, named the Australia Cup, realistically, it should be excluded to Australian teams only. And they already have ways to get into these FIFA intercontinental competitions anyways. So, yeah, and the winner of the Australia Cup gets into the Asian Champions League. This is also something to do with the Asian Confederation guidelines or whatever, but they basically just axed both New Zealand A-League clubs and all New Zealand teams, which means this year we're going to be seeing the possibility of Western United come back in through the preliminary rounds. As said in the article, which I can't read because I need to consent to cookies and it won't let me consent, so I can't read the article. But really big changes. Now my thoughts on this is very, very simple. Stupid, but I understand it. Now, I understand it because it's called the Australia Cup. But if we're going by this logic, surely you also kick out the A-League, the New Zealand A-League clubs from the A-League, right? Because if we're basing it off this whole consensus of the A-League and the A Cup, I'll just call it A-League, A Cup, same thing. Australian League, Australian Cup, surely the New Zealand team should be fully axed, right? Surely they should be kicked out and put into the New Zealand Premier Division or whatever. Not the A-League. I mean, not, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have the A-League as the Australian League. Why do you have New Zealand teams in that if you have the balls to kick them out of the Australian Cup? If you let them compete in the Australian League, let them compete in the Australian Cup. Common sense. Now, I do think this is also a good thing because the name Australian Cup should be quite simple, and I feel like having New Zealand teams and it defeats the purpose. I understand why they did it, but there needs to be further thought as well, because you also have the Australian League, which in my opinion is growing massively. More players are coming to the Australian League, like Ryan Fraser, who I will cover in this video. And it is gaining a lot of traction. People have literally gotten into my A-League videos because they want to learn more about certain teams, about who's good, who's bad, who's doing well, who's not. So we are literally growing as a league. We, as in me and the ALeague fan base, which is actually growing quite quick. It's really quite big. I know a lot of ALeague people who love the league as it is. And I just want to see this amazing league grow as someone who started watching it 2 years ago. The Australian League, the Australian Cup, is making big strides to turn into a very popular league. And I've already tweeted that it's the third best league in the world, which I'll touch at the end of this video. Stupid but smart to remove the New Zealand teams from the Australia Cup. Let me know what you think down below. As we move into the next part of this video, which is a quote from Sydney FC boss, Ufuk Tele. He says it's not easy playing for Sydney FC. I think the jersey does carry a lot of weight, and we've got to live up to that expectation. But the only way they can live up to that weight is playing more games. And they've also further stated that, on a positive note, Sydney FC will have Joe Lolly back for the derby this weekend. Now, on the quote, what Ufuk did say, I do agree with it to an extent. Sydney FC is one of them bigger A-League clubs. Sydney FC have a really, really rich history of, I believe, 6 A-League titles. And they are very, very competitive in all competitions. They have a very solid squad. Yeah, okay. I think their midfield can improve. I think they could need 1 or 2 midfielders, but they're not lying when he's not lying when he said, oh, it's not easy, because it's not. So Sydney FC for the A-League is like Manchester City or Man United. It's a large club. It's a very big club for a very growing league with a lot of promising talent coming out of that league. And anyone who plays for Sydney FC needs to know that it's not going to be easy with the weight that the jersey does carry. It's all good playing well for Newcastle Jets or Perth Glory or whatever, but if you get that transfer to a Sydney FC, and if you struggle, then you're going to look bad. And a lot of it has got to do with the size of the club and the leap from a Perth, no disrespect, to a Sydney FC. It's a big jump. And obviously when Sydney play bad, that kind of isn't acceptable. But yet again, sympathy you kind of have to give to an extent, but the weight of the jersey, the size of the club, shouldn't be a reason why they get smashed 4-0 by Melbourne Victory on the weekend. In other news, Ryan Fraser has been announced as a Western Sydney Wanderers player. We should see him in the squad for the derby, hopefully. Let me just find it since I didn't actually bookmark this. Which I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't actually. Here we are. But yeah. Obviously Ryan Fraser, former Premier League winger, he's already made his debut, but he apparently played really well on the weekend. He did get announced as a Western Sydney Wanderers player, and I do think Ryan Fraser is one of them players who will raise the standards of the league, and it'll show players who kind of go, oh wow, that player has done superb, and the league isn't as bad as what it makes it out to be. I do think this is a really good step for the A-League, and I hope Ryan Fraser keeps smashing it, because this league is a league I absolutely love and I want to see it grow. And the way to grow it is to have better players come into the league. Western Sydney Wanderers signed 34-year-old Hiroshi Ibusuki on an 18-month deal, then sacked their coach, Statits, a few days later. According to Andy Harper, one of the AV commentators, it's totally bizarre. And then it says on here, has the club found its own Joe Lolly? This whole comparison with Joe Lolly, it's something. This is what Andy Harper said fully. How Alan Statits and his regime allowed to sign these players, for example, Ibusuki, with the knowledge the club was looking to move him on. This is a bizarre set of circumstances. It speaks to the undercurrent around the place. The fans are asking, what is the procedure here? The coach signs these players and then 3 days later, he's punted. It is totally bizarre. And I couldn't disagree more. You sign these players for the said coach, who you then let go of. Don't sign a player if you're going to let go of the coach who signs these players. Unless if these players are manager-led, which most clubs nowadays go board-led, so the manager turns into a coach, which then works with what he's given. Which wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But if this is manager-led signings, then what's your point in letting go of the manager? Obviously, it's nice to have a player who is very experienced in the modern game in Ibusuki, but why sign him if the new manager didn't approve? Or what if the new manager doesn't like Ibusuki? Totally bizarre to me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I will be posting more AV content as there's more news out and stuff. But I thought I'd do this one. There is probably stuff what I missed. But I thought, might as well. News is out. There's enough out over the past 24 hours. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And peace!